What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. I'm super excited for you guys to hear the conversation I was able to have with my friend Spencer Nadolski, or Dr. Nadolski. If you guys don't know, I've actually had him on the channel a couple of times, but he is actually an obesity specialist. He is a doctor that specializes in obesity. So today I wanted to talk about, I've heard a lot of stuff going on. It's kind of talking about COVID-19 and what it means if you are struggling with obesity, if you're more at risk, if you're not more at risk. So I just wanted to talk to someone that I know knows a lot more about the topic than me just kind of sharing my opinion on it. So I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this. If you guys don't follow Spencer, Dr. Nadolski, I will have everything linked down below. I'll have his Instagram. He actually just started a YouTube channel as well. I will highly recommend that you guys go over there, give him a subscribe, let him know that I sent you. But without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Dr. Spencer, thank you so much for coming on the channel. We've been trying to set this up for a while, basically since everything kind of started happening. You are a very busy man with many children, so you have to get a little bit of time throughout the day where you can make something happen.
Children and memes, it's my day.
Yeah, children and memes, pretty much. So let's just jump straight into it. So with everything going on and with COVID-19, with that's such a huge thing that is currently, obviously everyone is affected by it. We're all kind of dealing with it in our own ways. We're all kind of affected by it in different ways. And so I was just curious. So I have heard, and I think everyone has heard so much about how this virus can affect you and how much it can really ruin your life. You ruin your day. It really depends on the person, right? How much it affects you. Now, a word that I've heard thrown around so much recently, a word that I've never heard before this, is the word immunocompromised. And basically, from what my understanding is, that if you are immunocompromised in any way, shape, or form, this virus can be much more deadly and just much more of a pain in your butt if you do develop it. And so I wanted to ask you, because I've heard people talking about immunocompromised. When someone is struggling with obesity, that also means that they are immunocompromised. Is that correct?
I wouldn't classify it as immunocompromised. I would classify obesity as a risk factor, though. So immunocompromised, we generally think of in medicine as like someone with HIV, AIDS, someone on chemotherapy, somebody on chronic steroid use, someone with some of these medicines that modulate your immune system, cancer patients. What I would say is I would call obesity more of just an enhancing risk factor. I wouldn't necessarily call those with obesity immunocompromised per se, though. It may be some semantics there, because well, if you're immunocompromised, you are at increased risk for the complications and quite frankly, the increased fatality rate or mortality from COVID-19 or any other type of transmissible illness. But I wouldn't say somebody with obesity is necessarily immunocompromised. And that kind of gets into, I believe we had a discussion a little bit before about the metabolically healthy versus unhealthy obesity. And there's multiple reasons obesity might be a risk factor for COVID-19 and influenza and any other type of disease like this.
Mm-hmm. So what is it about, having obesity that would make you more at risk to developing the certain, symptoms and stuff with COVID-19?
So there's a few things. So with obesity, you are at increased risk for metabolic issues. And we're finding that those with cardiovascular disease and metabolic syndrome type 2 diabetes, hypertension, are at the highest risk of these complications, simply because your cardiovascular system and all these things can't handle it. The biggest complication we're seeing, we get a pneumonia from the COVID-19. And then some people end up on a ventilator and they get what's called this ARDS, acute respiratory distress syndrome. And so those with an impaired overall health tend to have worsening effects of that. Whether they whether their immune system actually is involved in increasing the risk of this or not. It's hard to say right now. Just we have epidemiological evidence to just go, look, if we see who's dying more often, who's having these complications, it seems to be these people with these conditions. And so then there's the other factor of what we'd call like a just based off of your mass. So if you're having respiratory issues, if you have more mass, we see with sleep apnea and those with obesity have some hypoventilation type of issues. So you can imagine if you had to go on a ventilator, or if you're at home struggling to breathe, just having that extra mass and not being able to ventilate your lungs and oxygenate your blood, you're going to be at an increased risk of these complications too. So it's multiple things going on. I think, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of research going on right now, and I think obviously, if you see my social media, people are coming and attacking like, hey, we don't know the case fatality rate yet because there's tons of people out there that are asymptomatic, and it's true. We don't know these numbers yet. We're estimating based off predictions. So I think when the dust settles, we're going to see a lot. But I mean, even with obesity, you see people with influenza, just the flu. They do have higher complication rates regardless. How does that change our management? And we can get into that. Like, is this going to be a wake up call? We could talk about that too as well.
Yeah, I definitely do want to get into that before we kind of go down that rabbit hole, because I definitely have some thoughts on that. Yeah. I think it is interesting because, I don't want this to be like, oh, if you have obesity, you're a bad person, you're going to get this and die from it. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I just thought it was an interesting point that is something that can, might cause complications, as well as, and I think I read this, and again, there's a million things out there. So if I'm wrong, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I've heard that just hypertension in general is if you have that pre-existing condition and you develop COVID-19 or if you get COVID-19, that can also be a huge issue. And the thing that's interesting to me about hypertension is that I'm sure a lot of people have heard it's the silent killer, because a lot of people, they have hypertension, they don't even know it, so that, I think that's a really scary thing. And I think that kind of goes into a lot of people seem to think like, oh, well, I'm totally fine and healthy and I'm fine, so like if I get it, it won't be an issue. But like there's a lot of people that might think that are completely hypertensive and they have no idea.
True. That's absolutely true. Yeah, and we're also, we're still seeing young folks getting taken out by this. I could tell you, it's possible I've had it. Who knows? My wife's going in and out of the hospital, people she's been exposed to potentially. However, I can tell you, if I haven't had the virus, and I don't know, but I don't want it. I'm reading about some of these young folks, and it's very low risk in people that are in general below 30 years old. I'm 36, so maybe my time's come already. But in general, it's still low risk. But I wouldn't even want to chance it. We're still seeing hospitalizations a lot in this age group, even where I am at. Even being healthy and no risk factors, no obesity, no overweight, no anything. But yeah, in general, like there are a lot of people that go without even knowing their blood pressure's high, and so there's probably a lot of people out there that don't realize that they are at a high risk. They may think that they're healthy, but they don't even know because they haven't checked it recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I thought that was an interesting point. And then so kind of bringing it full circle to the thing that we were talking a little bit before we started recording, but this has been something that has been kind of mulling through my head, especially the past, I would say, week, with all of this going on, and with the fact that your health before ever developing COVID-19 or ever coming in contact with it has a big correlation in basically how well you handle it. And again, I don't think there's anything that we can do that will make it so there's no chance you'll get it and have any issues, but I think that being in a healthy place gives you a better chance of not being, put on the sideline from this disease, from this virus. I'm just curious, and I would love to hear what you might think about this, but because obesity and developing obesity is something that having issues from it usually takes a very, very long time, right? Like you could be 20 years old and have been like, for me, I was 20 years old. I was overweight my whole entire life. I really wasn't noticing much issues from that. But I'm just thinking in my head, if I saw this going on and I was still 360 pounds, I would be terrified, knowing that the fact that the size that I am is putting me more at risk of this virus taking my life. Like, that's just a fact, right? And so I'm just curious if after, again, like you said, the dust settles, if people are gonna be like, oh wow. So like how I treat my body and how healthy I am now will help me in the long run if something like this ever happens again. You know, I'm just really curious to see what this virus will have an effect on, you know, the rest of our lives, really.
I think when the dust settles and the panic is over, we've gotten a vaccine, whatever it is. I think it's going to be a bit before we get this all. But I have a feeling there may be a few motivated, a small percentage of those with like obesity that will be motivated. Probably the people that watch your channel who are like, you know what, he inspired me. I want to be like him. I think that's the type that will be motivated and give them an extra push, and maybe a small percentage after that. But I think beyond that, it's going to be like anything else. Like, hey, you're going to develop heart disease. Hey, you're going to do all this stuff, but it doesn't necessarily change behavior. The whole black lung effect. Like, is that really going to scare people into? Is that going to scare people into trying to lose weight specifically because it is so tough? I don't know. I think, yeah, it's a much more acute issue. But once this acute issue, because people aren't like, let's say if you go, all right, I think there's a year before I can get that virus, that may motivate people. Like if they knew in a year the virus is closing in on them, that might give them motivation right now, you know? Yeah. But right now we're kind of like, oh my God, it's all over the place. It's probably too late to start trying to lose weight aggressively, at least right now. I still think you could probably start trying to improve things, but it's hard. I got patients that are just like, man, I don't know if I feel like doing anything right now. Most people are feeling that way. So I think that once this acute period and pandemic kind of thing boils over, I think everybody's going to go back to the same way they were. Most people. Again, I think the people watching this right now who really like you and resonate with you, they're going to be like, I'm going to kick it in even to a higher gear because they're a special breed that's following you. I think, and then there may be another slight percentage who will find people like you go, I need some motivation. I do need to kick it in. And then I think that the rest of everybody will just go, whatever, I'm just going to go live my life. That's what I think. I hope I'm wrong, actually. It would be awesome, but it's as a very obesity as you talk about every time we're on this call and all your videos. I mean, it's a very complex thing. So I assume most people will not make a change. Yeah. That's what I think.
I mean, I agree. I definitely feel that way. I guess it's more in my head. I'm just like hopeful that maybe I'm wrong in that, you know?
I hope so.
The other thing I'm curious about is because obviously we've kind of talked about this, and I know that you're kind of pressed for time, but the last thing that I was like kind of thinking of is how, because like this whole health at every size and body acceptance and stuff, this movement is really growing. I'm curious to see if this does anything with that. Because again, the whole, the name of this movement is health at every size. And I've made many videos about that, but I'm genuinely curious about that. I think realistically, probably not that much is going to change, right? Like kind of like we already said. But again, it's just something that I've been thinking about as this has been progressing, because it's just a fact that if you are struggling with having obesity, you're at higher risk. And it's like, is that wrong for saying, And I struggle with that to this day because I'm not like trying to shame anybody. I'm just trying to share facts that hopefully like having the facts gives people the option of, okay, let's make a decision based on facts. If we're kind of avoiding the facts, then I almost feel bad. Like someone thought, oh, I didn't realize that this issue that I was dealing with was actually that big of a deal. I thought that I was totally fine. I just had a little bit of extra weight on me. Like, that scares me genuinely, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's okay stating facts. This is my topic when we were going to do this RP summit. It got pushed back because it's COVID-19, but I'm talking about, is it possible to have obesity and be healthy? And I'm going to get into the nuances of both metabolically healthy obesity, and even if you have obesity and you're metabolically healthy, are you still healthy? And then all these little things. I think the fact of the matter is there are going to be a lot of people with obesity that no matter how hard they try, they probably will fail. There's a percentage. I don't know what it is. A lot of people, and I think continually to tell them that they're at a higher risk and without context of just, we can state facts, but pointing our fingers and being like, you're at a high risk, you're going to die. Mm-hmm. And they just keep trying despite trying their best and whatever therapies they've done. I don't think it's helpful. So like, it just depends on how you present it. I don't think you present it poorly. I do think there are a lot of fitness professionals that do, though, and it's kind of like, why do you guys care so much? Like, why do you just let them live? Whereas then you see somebody in the anti group, and let's say kind of the extreme Hayes group, that is like, no, obesity is not a risk factor. It's fine. You're healthy. And it's like, well, that's not true either. So like, can we just be like reasonable about this and go like, look, obesity is extremely tough to resolve, but you're at a higher risk. Just do the best you can and just understand that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's really like, I don't understand why it has to be like an emotional, I understand why it's an emotional thing, because people that have lived with, you lived with obesity for most of your life. And so now, it was tough. I know we've talked about it, but like, so then if for others who aren't in your position where for some reason that they just, I don't know, they couldn't do it, despite multiple tries, I understand why it would be emotional to have people pointing their fingers at you saying, you're going to die. Why don't you do something? Like, I've tried. So then to join the camp going, oh, maybe I'm not unhealthy, I'm fine. Yeah, this is great. And it's like, well, okay, fine. Like, anyway, it's a quite nuanced, people hate that word nuance, but it's true. It is. It's not a black and white thing.
It's not black and white. Like, if it was, it would have been solved, right? Like, it wouldn't be an issue anymore. I found that for me personally, just trying to share the information that I know as far as like fact is concerned, I do that, but then also be empathetic. Like, if you're just sharing fact and not caring about how people feel, I don't see that. Like, people are like, facts over feelings. And I'm like, you can still share facts and care about how someone feels. Like, I don't think that those have to be separated, and I think that's really important. And so, that's what I try and do. But yeah, dude, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time and coming on here in the middle of your day. I appreciate it, bro. We'll definitely connect again. Stay safe out there, bro.
Yeah, we got to hang out again, but you're not even that far away and we're socially distancing.
I know.
Physically distancing. Socially, we're connected.
Connecting. All right. Thanks,
That's
man.
Right.
Obey the warning signs, and when there are flashing lights or wigwags, don't attempt to cross until they come to a complete stop.